The answer to that is it has been accurately translated and not so accurately translated, depending on which translation you pick up. By and large, the translations that are available to us today are, for the most part, good, accurate translations. The copies of the scriptures that we have, the New Testament, the last, about third of the Bible, a little less than that, is written in the Greek language. And we have thousands of ancient Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, some of them going all the way back to the 2nd century, to the early 100s. Scholars over the last century and a half have carefully examined those thousands of Greek manuscripts, comparing them one against another. What we see is they have been very faithfully handed down. There are some differences. Sometimes a name will be spelled differently. Sometimes a the or an will be missing. But by and large, what we have is uniformly passed down. And we are very confident that what we have is what is there. The trick then is translating from one language into the other. And by and large, the translations that we have today run the gamut from what would be called a paraphrase, which is where you just try to get the basic gist of what it says, to a very literal translation, which tries to translate word for word from one language into another. It is sometimes difficult to translate very literally because, for instance, if you wanted to translate from English into another language, let's say we wanted to translate from English into Arabic, a common expression that is used in America today. Hey, what's happening? How would you translate that into another language? You know, you might be able to translate word for word, but chances are it won't mean the same thing to them. Or, hey, ¿qué pasa? How do you translate that from English into another language other than Spanish? You know, it's often difficult to do, and translators work to try to best express what the original says and put it in contemporary English. If you have an old translation, like the King James Version of the Bible, beautiful translation, powerful language, it has greatly shaped the English language. But for many people today, it's almost a foreign language, because these and thous and wheresoever thou goest and whatsoever thou doest, that's just not the way we talk anymore. And so what translators are forced to do is to change those translations as the language itself changes. They have done a very good job. The Bible that you're using tonight in here is the New International Version. It is a translation that leans more toward the literal word for word instead of a dynamic equivalence, but it does seek to put it into contemporary English language, newspaper language, I guess would be the best way to put it. By the way, a brand new revision of the New International Version just came out and is starting to become available in bookstores. It is a new a revision of this translation because, as the translators admit, the English language has changed rather dramatically since I think 1984 when this one came out. For instance, if you read through the Old Testament in here, you will read about individuals who are not native Israelites, and the Hebrew word is translated aliens. In 1984, alien was a good word. Then came all of the sci-fi movies. Then came, you know, things like He's Alive. And where are those little pesky chocolate, or actually peanut butter candies, you know? And the finger lights up and you realize an alien, for our culture, is somebody who's come from another planet. And so the new translation translates that word now as foreigner. And because our language has changed. But we've got some great translations. If you want an example of one that's more a dynamic equivalent paraphrase, take a look at what is known as the New Living Translation, sometimes abbreviated NLT. And it will give you the gist of what the text says. It's not always word for word, but it's a whole lot easier to read. I believe personally there's a place for both, because you can use them together in your Bible study, and things will come alive in ways that they wouldn't if you were just looking at one.